If you're wondering why Hawkeye hasn't seen a return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe since the conclusion of the self-titled show, Hawkeye, well, Jeremy Renner provided an answer for that. And it's one that is kind of typical of Disney but will not please the fans. And yes, I have washed the shirt since I last wore it.
'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to the StudioJake vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and if you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast and consider becoming a channel member. Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye was probably the last good thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe after the conclusion of Avengers Endgame, which also closed the Infinity Saga. He would go on to star in a self-titled show, Hawkeye, which ran for one season on Disney Plus and introduced the character of Kate Bishop, who is not a popular character by any stretch of the meaning with fans. Many fans regard her as sort of one of those Marvel Now forced in characters where they were trying to replace all of their main characters with people who are race swapped or gender swapped. A great example of this is Riri Williams as Ironheart to replace Tony Stark as Iron Man, that sort of thing. However, there was a lot of speculation that Jeremy Renner would return as Hawkeye for a season 2 of the show and for future Avengers movies, maybe even cameoing or at least appearing in the Thunderbolts. But that has not been the case. In fact, when they did the cast reveal for Avengers Doomsday, his name was largely absent, although Simu Liu and Chris Hemsworth thought not to be returning at all. They were both there. So what's going on? Well, Jeremy Renner delivered a message for the fans, and he claims that Disney offered him half pay to return as Hawkeye for a second season of the show. This is according to Fandom Pulse. Actor Jeremy Renner, who plays Hawkeye in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, recently shared that Marvel Studios wanted him to return for a second season of the Hawkeye Disney Plus show, but only offered him half the salary for the first season. Speaking with High Performance, Renner said, "They asked me to do a season 2 and they offered me half the money." And I'm like, wow, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money. And so 8 months of my time essentially, and I have to do it for half? I'm like, I'm sorry. Why? Because you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over? Maybe that's why you want to pay me half of what I made on the first season. And this is not Marvel. This is just like Disney. Not even really Disney, Renner said. It's just the penny pinchers, the accountants. I told them to go fly a kite. I mean, just at the insult offer, so we didn't see eye to eye on that. And sadly, I still love the character, he continued. I'd still love to do it, but I had to defend myself. I didn't ask for any more money, mind you, just pay me what I made the first season. So it's a little disheartening that didn't happen. But that's fine. I'm happy to let that go because my body's probably thanking me time and time again that I'm not doing it right now, but we'll see. At the beginning of 2023, Renner was involved in a snowplow accident. A sheriff's report of the incident revealed that Renner was aiding his adult nephews whose truck got stuck in the snow. After using his piston bully to get the truck free from the snow, the plow began sliding sideways and proceeded to roll down the hill. As the plow began to roll down the hill, Jeremy jumped out of it. However, the report then details once he was off the piston bully, he realized it was headed directly toward his nephew. He feared the piston bully was going to hit his nephew, so he decided to attempt to stop or divert the piston bully, he states. He then attempted to re-enter the cab of the plow but failed and was immediately pulled under the left sidetrack. He was then completely crushed under a large snowcat vehicle and had extreme difficulty breathing. The report indicated that a 911 call log noted that Renner's right side of his chest collapsed, upper torso is crushed. The report then detailed the piston bully rolled over him and continued down the road. He laid on the ground and focused on his breathing while his nephew and others rendered aid to him until medical personnel arrived on the scene. And then it goes on to talk more about the injuries he sustained during that. And fortunately, Renner made a full recovery. He has since appeared in a few films and returned for Mayor of Kingstown, which is a fantastic series. Normally, I don't like shows with a lot of morally ambiguous characters, but I do recommend Mayor of Kingstown. Please be advised, it is for mom and dad and maybe even grandma and grandpa. I don't recommend it for young children or even teenagers. But I have to say, that sounds exactly like something Disney would do. They are notorious for building up these star brands and then crashing them down. One of the most infamous sort of stories is the young man who voiced Peter Pan in the original animated version, not Peter Pan and Wendy. Blah. It was the original animated film when the young man was too old and he couldn't make the Peter Pan voice anymore because his voice changed. They set him out to dry. They wouldn't work with him. They wouldn't give him a new voice role. They just literally pushed him out into the streets and he tragically died. It was very, very horrifying. A lot of people didn't like that. And I have a feeling it's going to be the same with Hawkeye. Now, I don't think that they'll recast Hawkeye. I think that hopefully Jeremy Renner and Disney will work it out. But I find that incredibly insulting. And they didn't just do this to Jeremy Renner. This isn't the first MCU actor they've done this to. Chris Hemsworth expressed kind of disappointment at Thor Ragnarok because he didn't like it being so funny. He wanted it to go back to how the franchise was serious, a la Thor and Thor Dark World. But then Disney opted to rehire Taika Waititi for Thor Love and Thunder. And of course, we all know what a disaster that was. They couldn't even get gore correct, even though they hired a very talented actor in Christian Bale to portray the character. And it's just such a shame. And Chris Hemsworth was like, I'm not coming back to do another Thor movie until we get a different director for this franchise, which surprised everyone when he was featured in the cast list of Avengers Doomsday. Of course, that's the Russo brothers, who, of course, directed Captain America Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, Avengers The Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. So he probably likes them a little bit better. Man, a Russo brothers Thor film would be pretty epic. I would definitely watch that. I digress. Back to Jeremy Renner. I find it very insulting when Disney does this to their prominent actors. Now, I do think actors' salaries are over bloated in this day and age. I don't think they deserve millions of dollars for scenes that they shoot, most of them with stunt doubles. I think that a lot of these big name celebrities, they get all of these paychecks while the people who are just extras or just side characters or what we call character actors, they don't get anything compared to what these big headliners do. And I think that's a shame. Personally, that is how I feel. That's just my opinion. I think celebrities are way overpaid. However, I do think it is insulting when they agree to a pay and then they say, hey, we know you got ran over by a vehicle, but we don't care. We're going to give you half. Now, I'm sure mainly that had to do with insurance issues and they would probably have to hire more stunt doubles. So what? He wasn't asking for a pay raise, which would have been within his rights considering how the last White House administration poorly ran the economy. But he didn't. He just asked for his flat rate, and they said, no, we're going to give you half that. What? Of course, that's insulting. I would be insulted. I am a marketing professional. That's my day job. And if I went to a client and I said, hey, I'm going to run this big campaign, and they paid me, say, I've never made this much, so I'm just gonna throw this out there as an example. We're gonna offer you 10K. I'm like, great. And so then they come back to me a few years later and they're like, hey, we're going to run an almost identical campaign, but it might have a little bit more work because we're going to increase our memes or our graphic design and we want you more involved in the posting or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, okay, because we did work so well last time, I'm going to just offer you the same pay rate. I'm going to want 10K again. And they said, no, we're going to give you 5K. I would be incredibly insulted by that. Like, wait, helped you run a successful marketing campaign last time, and you're not going to give me this amount? By the way, that was just a hypothetical. But yes, I would be very insulted by that. So I can see that with Jeremy Renner. Now, who knows? In this day and age, maybe DC Comics will pick him up as a different character. I would love to see Jeremy Renner return as a superhero. Maybe they could pick him up as Green Arrow. Boy, that would be an insult to Marvel. But there are a plethora of other great DC Comics characters he could play. I could see him as several of them, and I won't do a list like that right now. But whatever the case may be, I do wish him well, and I hope that he will be able to return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the near future, or at least as the mayor of Kingstown. If you like that video, be sure to give it a like, share it out to all your friends, leave me a comment on what you think, and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell to get notifications when I post a new vidcast, and consider becoming a channel member. Now, that is a really great way to support the work that I do by becoming a channel member. However, another great way is to head on over to my new website, studiojakemedia.substack.com. There you can read most of my articles for free, or you can sign up for a subscription where you unlock a ton of new perks. That is a great way to help me in the work that I do. Thank you in advance. Another way you can support me is by checking out my books. I've got 4 out right now with more on the way. I've got Cacophony, A Tale of Faith and Fear, which is about angels battling demons over the souls of a small Texas town. If you like the supernatural or the paranormal, definitely grab this. This is what you're looking for. If fairy tales are more your cup of tea, check out my series, The Seven Royals. Book 1 is All Good Things, Book 2 is Breaking the Stars, and Book 3 is on its way. It is about a group of your favorite fairy tale characters who have to come together to defend their lands against a dark army. It is so cool. It's got dragons, magic, swords, battles, and so much more. Not to mention true love. What's a fairy tale without true love? So definitely grab a copy of these. You can also check out my latest fantasy romance novella, Blessed Child. It follows an elf princess who discovers she is pregnant with a human child. This sends her kingdom into chaos because they don't want to be ruled by a human. Her father, the king of the elves, hires a disgraced knight who's on the path of redemption to be her bodyguard, and the knight and the princess form an unlikely friendship as they navigate the turmoil around them. It is life affirming, it is about courage under fire, and I think you're going to love it. So pick this one up or all 4 at Amazon.com. Leave me a 5-star review. It really helps out small indie creators like myself. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.